let's start then. Um, I'm Reuel Zach, Elder Chair this year for the Mankind Project. Uh, we have a talk on self-awareness through pain that we want to do. We're going to do some breakout rooms. And we have four speakers, including myself, Diana Jongeling, Kevin Hauber, who just spoke at the last session, Paul Samuelson, past MKP chair. And we're all going to talk about our experiences with chronic pain and the awarenesses that we've gotten out of chronic pain. One of the things that I found is that there can be a lot of wisdom in chronic pain. There can be found a lot of wisdom from those who are in chronic pain. My experience with people in chronic pain is that they cut out as many unwanted interests, habits, and hobbies as they can. And I find that they have this focus that they've allowed in their life that allows creativity to thrive in the shadows of suffering. And some of the most effective leaders, healers, and people creating good change in the world also suffer from chronic pain. So I think there's a lot to be learned from those people that have done this, that you might, even if you're not in pain, you might find some wisdom in this talk today from those of us that are dealing with that. So we're each going to talk about our experiences and then we're going to have a breakout room. And so listen to what we're talking about. We each have a general topic that we're talking about with our experiences. So we're not talking about the same things. And if there's something you would like to find out more about, you're welcome to go into each of the breakout rooms or the one breakout room that interests you. And you can go between breakout rooms, but you might want to go to the one that interests you the most first. The one I'll be dealing with is called Cycles of Pain. The one Diana is dealing with is we're calling Pain and Identity. Kevin is dealing with the one we're calling Service Through Suffering. And Paul we're talking about one that's called Adapting to Pain. And so let's start out with Paul on adapting to pain, because he's just had been recently in pain and had to deal with it. So why don't you go first, Paul?
Sure. Thanks, Reuel, and I'm just honored to be with the other three of you and sharing our stories and hopefully giving some opportunities for people to ask questions of us and or share their own stories with the group that we find ourselves in. I am Paul Samuelson. I live in Whidbey Island, Washington. I turned 73 in a couple of weeks, and the magic of my change started right after my 70th birthday, when I encountered some different kinds of things. But in the summer of 2020, I began the diagnosis process to find out that I had idiopathic peripheral neuropathy. Idiopathic means they don't know where it came from. They don't know how it happened, which has made it real complicated.
I'm finishing up.
I guess it happened to me fairly quickly. What I've lost is mobility. I'm not immobile. I mean, I can walk, but I have to be very careful. The pain that I have is in my feet, ankles, legs, up to my knees and my hands. It makes my life completely different than it was. I haven't gotten where some of the other three have gotten from their time with this. I'm still working, which will be part of what we'll do in my breakout work, how to navigate the change, the significant change that comes in your life. And the significant change obviously is the physical piece. For me, the pain, the constant chronic pain that just doesn't seem to want to tame itself in anything that I've used. I haven't found a cure for managing it at the level I'd like to. So there is the physical pain for sure, and we can talk about that more in the breakout room if necessary. The emotional pain, the pain that's really caused me the most, um, taken the most energy from me, has really been adjusting and learning that I'm not the person I used to be physically. I don't have the same abilities. And emotionally, that's been very challenging for me. In the early stages, I was really angry and really frustrated, and felt really screwed over on the whole thing. Why did this happen? Where did this come from? And it took so much of my mental and emotional energy to manage that, to navigate with that. Um, all of the different emotions that I felt. I did get to the place after about 9 months or so, to a place of realizing I really had significant grief work to do in this process. So once I was able to find a man to work with and do work through the grief piece, and I actually got to a place of acceptance, which in my opinion is the gateway to joy, and was for me. So I found several months where I was able to really re-engage with the problems that I had, that being the pain and the emotional and mental acceptance, and working with knowing that this person that looks the same way that he did 3 years ago, more or less, um, is the same person on the inside, but the outside has different things going on. That would be, of course, the pain. After a few months of feeling that joy and really able to engaging even with the pain, I found my way back to another level of needing to grow a deeper level of grief. I really believe that, and this is going to not sound normal, maybe, but I really believe that this is a gift that's been given to me to do some very deep inner work of understanding what is this all about. It's caused me to go much deeper into the spirit of who I am, into the spirituality that I can lean into, to understand that this is what life can be, and for many it is. I think that the other piece is really getting a very difficult and hard look face to face with my mortality. This was an indicator and an opportunity for me to really understand that there's much bigger than myself that's at play in this, and helping me adjust with this disease and being a different kind of grandfather. There's a teaching that happens. My grandchildren, and let me know when I'm too far on here in terms of time. Um, my grandchildren and my oldest son watched me fall, which brought a whole nother dimension to what I had to work with and live with, is now that my family was beginning to see the difference in what happens, and that I really am not the dad and grandfather that I was, that I have limitations. And all of that to say, it has been complicated for me to adjust to the pain and all that it brings to me, and to be open to something different than anger and frustration, but be open to the opportunities that present themselves with me in a different way. I'll be good with that.
Hey, thank you, Paul. Yeah, so great. That was great. We're going to go to Diana next, and she's going to talk about pain and identity.
Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Yongling, and I have a similar experience to that, yet a much longer one. I have been experiencing pain for 20 years and chronic illness for 30. And for me, my identity became very entrenched in being sick, and a sick person, and being in pain. And just in probably the last 5 years or so, I have begun separating those two things out and discovering who I am outside of having an experience of pain and having an experience of a chronic illness. And really discovering my potential, who I can be, in spite of experiencing those things as well. And so what I want to share with you are how to move away from the identity of pain. And one of the ways I've done that is by changing the language and how I speak about it. You might have noticed I say I experience pain, and I'm not in pain. I will not really dive into words of saying like I'm really suffering, or the negative aspects of it. While that's very valid, and I do allow myself to do that, I don't try to stay in that mind frame. I also have identified and released self-limiting beliefs regarding the pain. I had a really big story about the pain and my illness, and it's been very important for me to recognize that and release a lot of that and create a whole new story for myself. And that has been really fun, and it's been an adventure. And recognizing who I am, like the truth of who I really am, that I'm a human being, I'm not a human doing. And that's a really hard thing for me sometimes, because I find a lot of value in doing things for others. And when I find myself limited in that, it's hard for me to find my own value. And that's an ongoing process for me. Also, one of my main things that I do is adjusting my expectations and how I'm able to show up. I used to just not participate in things because I would say, oh, I can't do that. I just can't do it. I'm not able to. And now I will just show up and see what happens and see how I'm able to participate. Maybe I can only do this much, but sometimes I can do this much. And it's a true adventure. And I'm open and willing to just allow what's going to happen instead of just completely shutting it out. For example, I went on a camping trip just this last weekend, and I normally would never even attempt that, given, how I was feeling. And I was very grateful to have friends supporting me. And I was able to participate, for part of the day. And I'm so grateful for that experience, instead of just shutting it out completely. So yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about in more depth, and do a little exercise about how to identify ways we limit ourselves. And it can also be for emotional pain as well. So, there's ways that we limit and attach to suffering with emotional pain as well. So that's what I'll be talking about some more.
Yeah, thank you, Diana. Yeah, we talked about this before we were here today as a team, and Kevin and I have also had that experience of having to go through our identity and getting past that of being a person in pain. So thank you for that. All right, we'll have Kevin go next, and he's going to talk about service through suffering.
Thanks, Reuel. So just to frame for you, I experienced 23 years ago a surgery that had equipment that didn't work right and caused nerve damage for me, and left me with chronic pain that I've been dealing with ever since. Then there have been some add-ons to that over the years. I contracted shingles here 13 years ago, and that added to the pain. And then COVID had the result of of amping that up. It went after the weak link kind of thing. So I can attest to long COVID being a very unpleasant thing. So in the first few years, I would say the first 5 years or so that I was experiencing chronic pain, it was about surviving for me and just learning to be able to get through the day, have some level of presence and productivity for myself, and being able to just be around people and be okay with that. And there was this huge adjusting, and I think anyone that has that experience of losing the life that we knew before and having to adapt to some new physical existence altogether can probably relate to that. And that is not just a physical pain thing, but any kind of shocking experience like that changes tends to bring that on. So, learning to survive. And then what I realized is that medicine might have been able to cause the chronic pain situation for me, but it wasn't solving it. And lots of procedures, lots of medications later, that wasn't helping. So I started doing a lot of alternative therapy work. I found the things for me, the yoga, the aquatic body work, the men's work with the emotional component to it, in particular, were all things that were helpful to me. And what I realized in that was that while I was using those particular modalities to heal myself, that I could also benefit myself and others by sharing those. And so I realized that the suffering that I was experiencing was in fact a call to service, to get beyond myself and my own individual suffering and step into something larger, something that could be understood by others. I wrote a book about the experience that I had. I have a website that I host about that, and all of the healing modality work that I do on a regular basis is all an outgrowth of that experience that showed me that I need to get out beyond my own skin. There's been comment about how going into a chronic situation like that tends to bring someone focused inward. I certainly understand that, and as an initial response, my experience is also that that's okay. And in the long run, sooner or later, we all have to get out beyond ourselves and realize that we have connectivities and that others in the world are having similar experiences. And one of the things that we find is that first noble truth of Buddhism, that life contains suffering, is true, and that all shows up for us in some way, and that we need to be able to lean in on each other in the process of doing that. So in my breakout room, we'll talk in terms of how not only to take care of ourselves and be able to find the things that are helpful, but how do we turn around and reflect that out into our world for the benefit of ourselves and others around us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Good wisdom there. My topic is cycles of pain. And a little about my pain is that it was something that was missed. The medical field had a hard time diagnosing for many years. And I was in survival mode, as Kevin called it, for quite a few years. And I'm one of those guys that didn't go to a men's meeting until I was dying. And it was like I had to be dying before I went to a men's meeting. And then when I eventually did, it saved my life. So my story around that is that I took back my power from what the medical community was experimenting on me. And I took it back and I figured it out for myself what was going on with me. So that was my experience, and I'm so grateful for the Mankind Project because of that. Because we have these meetings, because I got the power, I took back my power. Guys helped me to do that, and it saved my life. So at that point, I was having the medicine doctors were giving me was giving me small strokes. I was definitely had a limited lifespan at that point. So the cycles of pain that I'm talking about, though, are related to now. I figured out a way to deal with it. I figured out this was 18 years ago, and I figured out ways to deal with it. And I still have pain cycles. I usually have a couple pain cycles each week, and the cycles go where I'm in pain. I'm just dealing with that pain. I'm being in pain at that point. That's the first cycle. And then how do I deal with that? And that's a whole interesting thing in itself. And then the next cycle is dealing with the pain. What do I do to deal with it? Ice packs, medicines. It's a headache pain that I deal with. The condition I have is called selective IgA deficiency, which means I don't have immunoglobulins in my sinuses. It's a very focused thing. I don't have something in my sinuses. It's not in the rest of my body, but I have basically what I have is a constant sinus infection, and that causes headaches. So what I figured out was that I have to do a sinus rinse with antibiotics 4 times a day. There's no cure for this. I've been to an immunologist, got it diagnosed. That's what it is. There's no cure for it, but I have to deal with it regularly. So dealing with the pain, how do I deal with it when I'm in it? Ice packs is one. Do I go into a dark room? What do I do to take care of myself? And then recovery from pain. This is really important. I realized I was spending a lot of time not recovering from pain, and I had very little free time because I guess my body was so worried about it coming back that I couldn't recover that well. So it took me a lot of months and years to figure out how to recover from pain. And then time without pain. Time without pain became this so sacred little space for myself that, but I could also waste that away because I could be thinking about the pain coming back. So the time without pain became a very sacred space for me, and it's been growing ever since I learned to deal with this. And then service towards others is the last part. How do I make my life meaningful with pain? And so those are the 5 areas that I deal with chronic pain, and we could talk more about those in the breakout room, and you can ask about any of those if anyone's interested. I will say, if any of you are dealing with people with chronic pain, you may want to go to the breakout room. That might help you if you're as a caregiver or you're dealing with someone with chronic pain. There's another option here.